very important to know how to get around a design inside of the software. And in this video, we're going to explore the different ways that you can zoom in and out of a design that you have loaded inside of the software. This is a very important thing to know how to do. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about zooming in. For instance, I just want to show you some of the tools right off the bat. We have over here, you can see it's a hand right now, but if I click on it, this is what you should see, is a magnifying glass. If for some reason you see the hand, that means that you have the pan tool selected. You can just click the arrow and come back right to the zoom magnifying glass. The way this one works is you click and drag over the area that you want to zoom into. Now once you are zoomed in, there are a couple things you can do, like right mouse click, and that will zoom you out. If you left mouse click, it'll zoom in, and it will zoom in and out according to where the cursor is on your screen. So if I come over here and I want to zoom in, I just put my cursor over here and I left mouse click and it will zoom in. If I want to zoom out, I right mouse click. That's just a little shortcut that is really helpful. I use it all the time. So I might zoom into an area by clicking and dragging over it, but then I might even go deeper into it by left mouse clicking. You do have to have the magnifying glass selected in order to do that. So once you go to a selection tool or any other tool, you would have to click back onto it to do this. But left mouse clicking, right mouse clicking. The other way that you can do it, and is probably a little bit more the way that I go about doing it, is if your mouse has a scroll wheel on it, like I'm using a Mac computer and I'm running the software through Parallels on the Windows side, and for me, I like to zoom in a lot using the scroll wheel on a mouse, and for that reason I don't use like the Apple mouse. I use a regular mouse that you would use on a PC that has the wheel on it, and with the wheel, if I that's usually in between your left and your left and your right mouse button. If I move that scroll wheel up, you can see it's zooming out. If I move it down, it's scrolling in. Now this is probably because I'm on a Mac, it's probably the opposite if I was on a Windows computer, where scroll up it probably goes in, scroll back, and it will probably zoom out. Just a little thing that's kind of different with Macs and PCs, but just know that that wheel on your mouse can work as a way to zoom in and out of a design. So I use that quite a bit. The other way that you can access the zoom tools, I'm just going to go back to the selection tool here, is right here on the floating toolbar. You'll notice that the magnifying glass is right there, and so you can click it and drag, and now you're into the mode that lets you left mouse click or right mouse click to zoom in and out, or use the scroll wheel on your mouse. We go back to the selection tool. The other things that you have are right here in the zoom box. Now this is a very handy tool as well. So there are different ways that you can zoom in and out of a design using the zoom box. So to access it, you can see that I don't see an arrow here, but if I click over here on the right hand side, I can choose to zoom in and that will zoom in. I can choose to zoom out, it'll zoom out. Now you'll probably notice already that that's not a very accurate way of zooming in and out. It's a little bit better just to use your keyboard or the left and right mouse click with the zoom tool or magnifying glass selected. But the other things that are really nice is like this, the to fit. So if I click on to fit, it's going to make the design large enough to fit in the entire window. So that's a very handy tool that I use quite often, but I don't come up to here to access it necessarily. What I like to do personally is if I'm zoomed in and I want to get to where I can see the entire design on the screen, I come over here to the magnifying glass and I just double click it with the left button. So I'm just going to double click it, and notice that that automatically makes it fit to screen. And the reason I like to do that is because usually my mouse is over here, and it's easy for me just to come over here, double click it, and get right back in, instead of having to come up here, hit a drop down, find where it says to fit, and do that. It's just a little shortcut that I like to use. But some of the other options you have is like a fit to selection, and then you have all these little zoom percentages. So some people, for instance, like to always digitize designs at 600%. So what they can do is they can just come right in here, hit 600%, and now they're working in that 6:1 ratio, and some people really enjoy that. Personally, I don't do it that way, but that is an option. That's how you would get to that. Some of the other things, the 1:1 is supposed to be like at size, but it's not truly perfect with that. So if you're thinking that that's going to be at the exact size, it's not really the exact size. If you actually stitched it out and you held the design up to your screen, you would notice that there would be a difference in the size. But the 1:1 makes it 100% right here. So those are some of the different options, like 10%, you can zoom all the way out. It's just, personally, I don't come up to here very often at all. I mostly work with the magnifying glass here or from the floating toolbar, and then I just zoom into an area, and from there I'll scroll with my mouse wheel or hit the left right toolbar. But the nice thing is once you have something else selected, the scroll wheel still works. So that's why as I'm digitizing and I need to zoom in and out, I'll do it using the scroll wheel, because I don't have to have the magnifying glass selected to do it. If I want a left mouse click and right mouse click, as you can hear probably on the screen here or on the video, it's not working because I don't have it selected. Once I select it, then I can left and mouse right click. If I take the selection off, I'm in the selection tool, the zoom with the scroll wheel works. Nice thing is the zoom with scroll work now works from wherever your mouse is, the pointer is. That's where it's going to zoom in and out of. That was a update that was released within the last year, and that just makes it very handy to work with. Now, along with the zoom tool, there is also that pan tool, which you probably noticed at the beginning, which I showed you how I toggled between the two. This magnifying glass with that arrow under it, you can access the pan tool. So I want to show you how this works. So if I'm zoomed into an area, and let's say I'm working over here and I want to get over a little bit further, I can come over here and I can, click this button a little bit, which I'll do quite often. You can hit the arrow keys. That's what I'm doing right now on my keyboard, and that will scroll up, down, left, right. The other option you have is the pan tool. So when you get to the pan tool and you select it, you can just click and drag around the screen and just find the area you want. Now the thing I like about this is that it can be a little bit faster to do, especially if you're not sure where you need to go but you still want to stay zoomed in. I like that you can just kind of click and drag and move it wherever you need to. So it is a handy tool, and you can still zoom in and out with your scroll wheel with that still active. Now I want to show you a little trick, because this is how I actually will use the pan tool. There is a keyboard shortcut for it, and all you have to do is press the space bar on your keyboard. So watch what happens to the cursor the moment I hit the space bar. It turns to that hand and it activates that tool. Now I'm in this tool, I can click and drag around, and when I'm done I can just hit the space bar again and it turns it off and automatically goes right into my selection tool. So I will use that quite often for panning. Instead of coming over here and finding the icon and then going, I'll just the space bar, go right into it. When I'm done, I'll hit the space bar again, and now I can kind of do whatever I want. Now one thing to note, anytime you go to that pan tool, it's going to change the icon to the hand or the pan icon. So if you want to get your magnifying glass back, you're going to have to click this button here and select the zoom tool. Now if I come up here and select it from here, it's automatically going to change it. So if you're used to using the floating toolbar, which I hope you are, that's a great way to do it. So these are the basic functions, but at the same time there's still more you can do with zooming. So I'm going to select this blue piece right here, and I want you to notice this is something that we've had for a while in the Floriani software, where you have the selection box with the tools around the outside. Now one of the things that was added around the toolbar is this little magnifying zoom icon, and what this is a zoom to fit. So if you're working with something and you really want to get in and modify it, it's a great way to just select an object and then click this zoom tool, and now you're in where that object that you have selected is now as large as it kind of can be to fit on the screen. So that is another handy tool, like this one right here. I can select it, click that, and now I'm right into it. And if you click it again, nothing's going to happen. What I typically do again is go to the scroll wheel on my mouse and I zoom in or out according to what I need to do. And so that's another way to zoom in and out of a design. Now there's one other area that isn't used very much. It's a feature in the software that's turned off by default. Some people really like to use it. If I come up here to tools, I think it's in my tools. I haven't even looked yet. No, it should be under view. Sorry. There's this thing called the navigator. If I click on the navigator, it's going to bring this box up. Okay, and notice that it's wanting to kind of snap it somewhere. You can do that. I sometimes will do that, but I'm just going to keep it right here, and I want you to see what's happening. Okay, right here you can see this red box. What that is showing me is it's zoomed into this area on the screen. Now I could take that box and I can move it around. So this is like a panning tool, right? So I can move that around and get it right to the part of the design I want. So I'll just tell you right now how I use this feature is I usually don't ever have my software taking up my entire screen because I have a really big monitor. So what I'll do is I'll pull this off to the side so it'll be outside of the software, and then I'll use it from there. So like right now you can't see it because it's off of my software, but you can see that I'm actually using it by clicking and dragging around in the design. Now you can modify things a little bit. If I zoom in and out, I'll just show you. Sorry, I got to bring that back. If I zoom in and out, notice that that box changes because it's either covering a smaller area or a larger area. So it's a very handy tool. It's just it was kind of crowding the space a little bit, and so by default it's turned off. But if you work with a large screen, I do recommend it, especially if you're working with a very complicated design. Okay, so one that you really have to zoom in and out of, move around in a design that has a lot of pieces. It can be very helpful for that. So I wanted to make sure that I did show you the navigator because it's not something that is discussed very often. So you do have a slider here. You'll notice that the slider will actually zoom in and out. So you can just slide it across, and it gives you a good idea of what's going on. So that is the navigator. I'm going to turn it off now by just closing it, and those are the different options that you have for zooming in and out and moving around in the page by using like the pan tool inside of the software. So I hope that you enjoy this video. I hope that you will explore some of the different zooming options. Like I said, for me, I use my scroll wheel on my mouse all the time, so I just go to an area and I just scroll in and out of it, and that's kind of how I use it. And I do come over here and double click this icon quite often to get back to a full screen. And if I really want to zoom into a specific area, I'll use the magnifying glass. It's rare for me to use the zoom box, but it is there, it is handy, and so you need to know how to use it as well. So I hope this video helps, and we'll see you in the next video.